Good afternoon. It's Thursday, April 9th. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. In our top story, Tehran has dispatched 2 warships to establish a military presence off the coast of Yemen, where Saudi Arabia is leading a bombing campaign to oust the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. United Nations officials describe the situation in Yemen as catastrophic and say that the Arabian Peninsula nation is undergoing a serious humanitarian crisis. We get more from IBA's Margot Dukevich in this report.
The United States is extremely concerned over Iran's growing involvement and military assistance to the Shiite Houthi rebels in Yemen, who are fighting gunmen loyal to ousted President Abdrabbuh Mansour Hadi, who was forced to flee the country. Tehran, which denied accusations that it's supporting the Houthis, announced yesterday it had dispatched 2 warships to the Gulf of Aden. Iran's press TV quoted Navy Commander Rear Admiral Habibullah Sayari saying the ship's purpose was to safeguard naval routes for vessels in the region. In an interview with Public Broadcasting Service in Washington, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry emphasized that Iran would not be permitted to destabilize the region.
Well, we're very concerned about what's going on there, and it's just not a fact. There are obviously supplies that have been coming from Iran. There are a number of flights every single week that have been flying in, and we trace those flights, and we know this. We're well aware of the support that Iran has been giving to Yemen. And Iran needs to recognize that the United States is not going to stand by while the region is destabilized or while people engage, in overt warfare across lines, international boundaries in other countries.
Intense fighting reported in the southern Yemen city of Aden, as well as in the country's capital Sana'a, prompted UN officials to warn of the escalating humanitarian crisis brewing in the war-torn country.
37 buildings were targeted, including 5 hospitals in Sana'a, Al-Dal, and Aden. UNICEF says that yesterday's airstrike on the Al-Rashidi school in Yemen's Ibn Governorate, which left at least 2 children dead and 2 others injured, is a stark reminder of the appalling risks faced by children as the conflict intensifies. Humanitarian communities concerned that the situation could turn catastrophic.
The Saudi-backed air campaign supported by the U.S. began on March 26th, with the aim of reinstating exiled President Hadi. So far, the airstrikes have failed to stop the Houthis advancing. Speaking at a press conference in Abu Dhabi, Yemen's Minister of Foreign Affairs Riyad Yassin said Iranian Revolutionary Guards are operating in Yemen, and Houthi rebels underwent training in Iran. Yassin and his counterpart from the United Arab Emirates called for a United Nations resolution that would seek a diplomatic solution to the crisis. During a visit to Pakistan, Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif called for a political solution to end the violence in Yemen and a halt to the Saudi-led airstrikes.
I think it's important for all of us to reach the understanding that war will not resolve the problem. And I believe it's very practical. Have a ceasefire. Stop aerial bombardment. Stop operations on the ground. Allow humanitarian assistance. Start an inter-Yemeni dialogue, intra-Yemeni dialogue. And everybody should facilitate that dialogue and reach a political solution.
While Zarif's statements sound pragmatic, the Islamic Republic continues to work behind the scenes with the aim of expanding its influence in the Middle East. Its ongoing military support for Hezbollah and Syrian President Bashar Assad, efforts to undermine Saudi Arabia, and now Yemen. Margot Dukevich, IBA News.
U.S. Secretary of State Kerry also commented on the nuclear framework deal with Iran, saying that Tehran must disclose its past military-related atomic activities as part of any final agreement, as he called on the U.S. Congress to not overstep its authority in foreign policy decisions.
The President is absolutely correct in making sure that what Congress does not assault presidential authority and the Constitution and doesn't destroy his ability to be able to negotiate this final deal. That's critical. And the President has said if the bill is what it is today, written the same way it is today, then he'd veto it. But if it's changed and adjusted and reflects the respect for the Constitution and the President's prerogatives, while at the same time embracing congressional oversight and review, fine. I mean, the truth is also Congress will have to vote to lift ultimately some of the sanctions which are congressionally mandated. So we all understand the process here, and I think we just need to be serious in a way that does not interfere with the President's ability to pursue the foreign policy interests of our nation.
Meanwhile, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani today announced his nation's insistence that all international sanctions against it be lifted on the first day of the final deal with the P5+1 countries that it goes into effect. Speaking at a ceremony in Tehran marking National Nuclear Technology Day, the Iranian leader warned that the Islamic Republic will not sign any agreement unless this condition has been agreed to. He then added that his government refuses to surrender to bullying, sanctions, or threats from the West. It's been a tragic couple of days for Israelis abroad, with 3 fatalities spanning 3 separate continents, with all of the victims under the age of 25. IBA reporter Alexander Jen has the details.
3 separate Israeli families are mourning the loss of their loved ones. The youngest of the 3 was a mere 12 years old. Her body was found this morning. She was on a special trip to Thailand to celebrate her bat mitzvah with her mother, father, and 2 siblings. The family was aboard the Ao Nang Princess Ferry in the Andaman Sea en route to Phuket from Krabi. The young girl went to the bathroom when there was an explosion in the engine room right next to the stalls. The captain of the ship hurried the 103 passengers into the water with life vests, saving everyone but the young girl. Confusion led the family to believe the Israeli girl was on another rescue boat as a flurry of fishing boats and speedboats rushed to help. Officials believe the victim died from smoke inhalation and couldn't escape the ferry bathroom in the few minutes it took the boat to sink. Earlier today, a foreign ministry spokesman told me the Israeli consul is in Thailand with the family. In Peru, near Machu Picchu, Max Sella, a 24-year-old man from Shoham, plummeted to his death when he fell from a zipline launching platform 80 meters high. Sella, a former commander of the IDF's engineering corps, was on a post-army service trip. Sella's family has been informed of his death, and the foreign ministry is working to return his body to Israel. In Berlin, it has been confirmed that the 22-year-old young man's body, found in the ruins of a church with massive head wounds, is an Israeli citizen. The Israeli embassy is still waiting on a DNA test. Alexandra Jen for IBA News.
Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev has been convicted on all 30 counts against him, including conspiracy and the use of a weapon of mass destruction. 17 of the charges are punishable by death, and sentencing of the 21-year-old former student will now be determined by a federal jury. Tsarnaev's conviction was basically a foregone conclusion from the start, given his own attorney's admission during the opening statements that his client carried out the attack with his 26-year-old brother Tamerlan, who was killed by security forces in the days after the bombing. During the penalty phase, Tsarnaev's legal team will present mitigating evidence in hopes of saving his life that is expected to include background on his childhood in the former Soviet Republic of Kyrgyzstan and later in the volatile Dagestan region of Russia, as well as about his ethnically Chechen family and his relationship with his older brother, with whom he moved to the U.S. from Russia more than a decade ago. Prosecutors portrayed both Tsarnaevs as full partners in their plan to punish the United States for its wars in Muslim countries. Jihadist writings, lectures, and videos were found on both of their computers, although the defense argued that it was Tamerlan who downloaded the material and then sent it to his younger brother. The 2 shrapnel-packed pressure cooker bombs exploded near the marathon's finish line on April 15, 2013, killing 3 spectators and wounding more than 260 others, turning the traditionally celebratory homestretch of the world-famous race into a scene of carnage. Staying with legal matters, and the district court in New York has refused to throw out the landmark jury verdict that found the Amman-based Arab bank liable for knowingly having supported terror attacks that killed and wounded American citizens in Israel during the Second Intifada. District Judge Brian Cogan upheld the September verdict by a Brooklyn federal jury that found the bank guilty of providing material support to 24 Hamas suicide attacks in all but 2 of the cases. Nearly 300 American terror victims or their relatives filed the lawsuit back in 2004, accusing the bank of having purposely helped Hamas to fund death and dismemberment benefit plans for Palestinian terrorists. Experts and other witnesses linked the extremists to accounts at the financial institution, which has several branches in Gaza and the West Bank, and detailed how cash payments were then channeled to the families of the suicide bombers. As part of the defense, attorneys argued that suspects identified by the plaintiffs as Hamas operatives who did business with the bank were not on terrorist watch lists that were compiled by authorities in the United States and other Western nations. The latest ruling now clears the way for another round of proceedings later this year to determine whether the bank should pay damages that could reach hundreds of millions of dollars or even higher. Members of the European Jewish communities will soon be able to communicate with one another privately on the internet by way of a unique social media platform aimed at increasing unity. The innovation was launched by the Lidl European Jewish Leaders Forum during their recent meeting in Budapest. We get more from IBA's Dennis Zen.
The latest Lidl Leaders Forum took place in Budapest, Hungary. The participants were all leaders of Jewish communities across Europe, people with a hands-on ability to affect change. They came to share knowledge and brainstorm the issues and problems they each face running their communities.
The main challenge now to bring people in all age groups closer to tradition, to religion, to explain why is it even a goal in life to be a member of the Jewish community.
We have a lot of mixed marriages, so we need to think about that, how to continue for the future.
We are really now, well, as I use the word, panicking, because we don't have enough money to support normal activities.
Our community is quite small. We have in the numbers, we have like 2,500 members. And we have a problem in the Czech Republic because we have a certain threshold, and when you are under this threshold, the community cannot reproduce itself.
A major concern of Jewish leaders in Europe today is the loss of community members who are packing their bags and leaving due to the scourge of a new violent anti-Semitism sweeping through the continent. The issue was made all the more tangible when just a few hours before the start of the forum, German Chancellor Angela Merkel arrived at the famous gold-domed Doheny Street synagogue in the Jewish quarter of the Hungarian capital. Merkel said that she came to warn of the dangers of the racial hatred that is taking root once again in Europe. Nonetheless, while visiting the Leadership Forum, Israeli ambassador to Hungary, Ilan Mor, said that he believes that today Jewish continuity and prosperity in Europe is assured.
Even the biggest anti-Semite understand that the Jews are part and parcel of the society, and their contribution, long-term, and also in the past, to the prosperity, for example, of Hungary, is known. So it will be a disadvantage for the current states to give up on the Jews.
A major initiative proposed at the conference was the establishment of a unique social media platform which could unite European Jewry, effectively removing spatial barriers to create a large unified community.
Europe is so open, and people have to communicate and exchange, and some small communities are ceasing to exist slowly, and that's the way how they can be part of the bigger Jewish family.
We have so much in common, in problems-wise and also motives-wise. So definitely, the more we network, the more we're better.
Venture capitalist Jonathan Pacifici, formerly of Rome, Italy, and now of Jerusalem, said that from his experience as a community leader in both countries, Israel must be brought into the European equation as a full member, including participation in the proposed web-based communication project.
Maybe Israel is not an EU member state, but its population is. You will find quite a substantial part of the Israeli population that owns or is eligible to have a European passport. So you have a very strange situation where you have a state of Israel with a very strong European DNA, And this process, I think, is going to go and be deeper in the next few years.
The executive director of Lidl, Darina Privalko, said she was thrilled by the social media proposal.
To be for all of them like a source of the best opportunities, the source of information, to accept the needs and to see the ways how they can be served on a pan-European basis, including Israel, that I would be privileged to let Lidl take this role and run this platform.
This was the second Lidl Leadership Forum to take place following its launch a year ago in London. The forum is sponsored by the European Jewish Fund and focuses on enhancing the sustainability and well-being of European Jewry. Dennis Zinn, IBA News.
Well, there has been much discussion over the ever-increasing divide between Israel and the American Jewish community. Professor Gil Troy of McGill University says that the Passover holiday proves that the deep bond between the two communities endures.
There's a big debate going on among statisticians and among activists about what's really going on with an American Jewry vis-a-vis Israel. And I think there's a tendency to listen to the loudest voices. There's a tendency to listen to the Peter Beinarts. There's a tendency to listen to J Street. And you know, intellectuals, academics have a tendency to think that what they think reflects the broad masses. Ain't true. If you look at the numbers of the Cohn Center in Brandeis, led by Len Sachs, one of the things they've seen is over the last 10 years, while everybody's talking about this growing crisis in American Jewry and American-Israeli relations, the numbers of the 20 to 30-year-olds are far more pro-Israel than the 30 to 40-year-olds. Why? Because of this secret called birthright. The fact that hundreds of thousands of American Jews and diaspora Jews have come to Israel and have seen the Israel of birthright, the Israel of sunshine, the Israel of birds, the Israel of Masada, the Israel of the past, the Israel of the present, the Israel of the future, that isn't just the Israel of CNN headlines and Barack Obama. And they've fallen in love with that country, has created a baseline of support for Israel among the 20 to 30-year-olds who are supposedly losing. So what's going on? We have to be careful because there is a growing rift among the intellectuals. There's a growing rift among the elites. The next generation of leaders, the next generation of Barack Obamas and Barack Obamowitzes are going through an elite college experience which often alienates them, but the masses are still holding. So that's a little bit of a nuance. And then the broader issue also that Stephen Cohn points out is that the real issue in American Jewry-Israel relations is not Boehner or Obama or Bibi or speeches or Palestinians. The real issue is Jewish identity. The more deeply tied to your Jewish identity, the less frequently you come from an intermarried household, the more tied you are to Israel. And Israel remains a Jewish identity issue. And what needs to happen in American Jewry is we need a renaissance internally. We need an improvement we need a better building of a Jewish future, and the stronger the Jewish identity in America is, the stronger the Jewish future in America is, the stronger the relations between Israel and the U.S. are. And when we talk about Passover, this is actually a beautiful time to press that reset button that Bibi and Barack need to do. One of the things I've always been fascinated about Passover is this anomaly that we're celebrating our freedom through restrictions. We celebrate our freedom, yet we can't eat chametz. We celebrate our freedom, yet we can't sit up straight. We have to lean. We celebrate our freedom with no's, with thou shalt nots, not just thou shalts. And that gets to a very powerful insight that goes back also to Sabbath observance, that goes back to to one of the core teachings of Judaism, and was articulated best by the great philosopher Isaiah Berlin. He talked about different kinds of freedom. There's freedom from and freedom to. Freedom from is liberation, to leave behind things. And so this Passover, I hope that American Jews and Israeli Jews will leave all the bad feelings of the election, leave all the bad feelings generating from the J Street conference, and really have a freedom from. I think also within Israel, there's a need to heal from the election. We've seen some really ugly rhetoric, both from the right and from the left, in the wake of the election. Usually the election is supposed to be healing. So first we need a freedom from, but then also freedom to. Freedom to is to say, yes, I'm going to take on certain restrictions. Freedom to is I'm going to take on certain obligations. Freedom to is I'm going to connect to the community. Why? Not because it's just helpful for Israel, not just helpful for the Jewish people, it's helpful for my soul. Ultimately, especially in this age of amazing freedom that we have, in this age of I want and I need and the me, my, more, if we don't have a conversation about Judaism and about Israel and about Zionism, that's about how does it work for me? How does it ground me? How does it make me a better person, a more fulfilled person, a better family member, a better human being, a more universal human being, giving to the world through my what's called tribal affiliation, through my commitments? Then we fail. And Passover, this holiday of freedom from and freedom to, this celebration of the Jewish story, but the Jewish story of freedom, which is a universal story, is the perfect moment for that reset moment.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his family made a brief exodus of their own from the capital this Passover holiday. While accompanied by a security detail and staffers, the family enjoyed stops at the ancient Mamshit Nabatean city and other archaeological sites in the Negev. The Prime Minister also gave his own version of being Lawrence of Arabia by participating in a camel caravan tour of the desert. He posted this video on his Facebook page saying that he and his family very much enjoyed the beauty of the land, along with hundreds of thousands of other Israelis touring the country this holiday vacation. Juxtaposing modern developments in the biblical region, he also took the opportunity to point out that he's now building a nearby facility to fight cyber attacks on the same land where Abraham once walked. The Prime Minister concluded his remarks by praising all of the nation's armed forces for protecting Israeli citizens this holiday, just as, he said, they do every other day of the year. Now taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today put in another mixed performance in foreign currency trading, while due to the closure of the stock market for the holiday. Here's a look at the closing numbers for the week. Turning to the weather, and we've gone from one extreme to the other, from hotter than normal temperatures earlier this week, and now we're going to see unseasonably chilly conditions until at least Sunday. Tomorrow, we're likely to see rain showers in the north and the center of the country, and even the chance of snowfall on Mount Hermon. Here's the forecast over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We hope you'll tune in again tomorrow, same time, same channel, when I'll be back at this desk to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a wonderful evening, happy Passover, and shalom from Jerusalem.